Hey, my name is Dylan. I'm an aspiring sound designer for video games with a wide range of audio experience from recording, post-production editing, and music composition. I'm developing a game demo in Unity that'll utilize my existing audio skills and showcase my abilities with game audio tools as well. Imagine a spiritual successor to Stray, but instead of a kitty, you play as a dog, and instead of a sci-fi futuristic city, the setting is a dense magical forest. I kicked this project off in the last episode with character movement. I built a raycast-based splat map detection system and dynamically controlled footstep volume driven by a player velocity RTPC. Now I'm working on the ambient soundscape with original music coming in the next episode, and after that an episode dedicated to instinct mode, a Witcher sense imitation where the player uses their heightened senses to track objectives in-game. Helping me on this project is my dog Jolene, who actually inspired the idea for this game. Without any further ado, let's get into it. In this episode, I'll tackle the terrain design, where I'll create 3 distinct zones with unique ambient audio, add some points of interest around the map like a river and a lake, and upgrade the Locomotion system from the last episode to include jumping. As always, we start with the tracker, and I made some important adjustments to it after the first episode so I can track how long individual tasks are taking to complete and more accurately plan future projects. First thing I'll do is turn this flat terrain tile into a lush forest valley. I'll start by using the stamp tool with some brushes I got from this free asset pack by Rowland. Essentially, these brushes contain height maps of natural shapes like mountains, and I just set the brush size and height manually, then with one click shape the terrain. I use River Auto Material 3's spline tool to quickly generate texture blending using the textures from the last episode. Took some trial and error to get right, but I'm satisfied with how it looks for my first time. My side quest for this episode is to record Jolene just living her life and see if there's any usable audio I can implement into this game. I attached the wireless microphone and hit record. I captured a great recording of her drinking water I'll definitely use. Just a reminder, I made all the music you're hearing in this video. Jumping ahead now, I've done a pass of the larger details, adding elements like rocks and trees. I've been doing this type of detailing in Minecraft for years and used that experience while designing the level. I created the 3 main ambient zones, forest, meadow, and cave, and then placed some points of interest around the map to explore. I'm holding off on adding the micro details like foliage and grass for now, as the look of the level is the secondary goal and is just a backdrop for the sound design. This video will be hours long if I tried to break down all the sound design elements individually, so I'm going to showcase the main sounds in the forest before doing the final demo. First, I find and analyze a reference file. I'm going to use a forest loop I found in a free asset pack on the Unity store. I identify the elements that I want to recreate, then I go into Logic Pro and begin to redesign those individual elements using the built-in synth Alchemy. For the low-mid bed, I used 2 noise oscillators with different high and low cut filters to match the reference audio and routed LFO modulation on the volume and pan knobs to add subtle stereo movement. The tree rustle sits in a specific region of the frequency spectrum. So in a new Alchemy patch, I again used 2 noise oscillators with frequency filtering to shape the sound. The first oscillator is actually a vinyl crackle noise pattern combined with heavy volume modulation. The last patch is a simple noise oscillator with a fast attack and decay for more pronounced cracks. Now we jump into Wwise to use its tools to further dictate how the audio behaves in-game. First, I imported the forest bed files into a random container, and then in the property editor, I looped the container to play infinitely, added a crossfade transition so the ambient noise floor is consistent, then routed the output to the forest mix bus, then sent an auxiliary signal to the forest reverb bus. Next, I'll direct your attention to the real-time parameter control forest distance. This RTPC controls volume, low-pass filter, and reverb send amount. It's being modulated by the player's distance to the box collider's border on the forest zone game object in Unity. Basically, when the player is inside the collider, the RTPC is set to 100. When outside the collider, the RTPC scales from 99 to 0, the further you get away from the border. Each of the other zones have their own distance RTPC and use the same logic to blend seamlessly between each other. Those RTPCs also control parameters on other sources as well. For the wind system, I combined an instance of Soundseed air noise generator with a blend container holding the foliage rustle and tree cracks I made earlier. Volume and many other parameters on these two sources are controlled by the wind gust and wind intensity RTPCs. Quick digression from audio now. Very basically, each tree prefab consists of a mesh, the object's geometry, one or more materials such as bark or leaves, and a texture set, typically including an albedo map for color, a normal map, surface detail, and a mask map containing packed data such as ambient occlusion and smoothness values. We can then sort of animate the texture set using these noise and mask textures to simulate swaying in the wind. The amount of movement is randomized between the min and max values in this script and then extrapolated into RTPC data, syncing the intensity of texture movement with the volume of my wind system back in Wwise. Next, we'll review the bird calls quickly. I found some good reference files, then analyzed the pitch, the note lengths, and the harmonic patterns so I can recreate the calls over in Logic. Using multiple custom envelopes mapped to the volume and pitch of two sine wave oscillators, I got a pretty solid recreation. In Wwise, I organized the different chirps into random containers inside a random container. Using an attenuation set with a max distance of 30 meters, I then create some custom curves to shape how the sound changes over distance. The reason the volume dips at 3 meters and below is because a custom script triggers emitters in a random location within a radius of the player. And when it occasionally triggered one within that distance, it sounded unrealistic. I used similar spawn logic for an insect buzzing emitter, but added a required idle time value so it only triggers when the player hasn't been moving for 10 seconds. It also requires a simple script on the emitter prefab to have a stop and start event. I used path automation and a custom attenuation set on the buzzing to simulate an insect whipping around your ears. Last thing I'll demonstrate before we do an in-game demo is the Rivers audio. In Alchemy, I combine a pink noise generator, a crinkle noise pattern, with an imported water footstep loop from the paw footstep pack I got in the last video. And then I used granular synthesis to blur the audio and make it sound like sloshing water. Nothing crazy going on in Wwise, just a few different exports in a random container, but there is a volume RTPC being controlled by a random LFO to add subtle ebb and flow to the water. Finally, I have a spline that follows the river's path and a script which finds the nearest point on that spline to the player and places the audio at that point. My M2 Pro MacBook is no slouch, but it doesn't have the necessary hardware for ray tracing, so when it comes to optimizing this small scene, I have a simple workflow just baking adaptive light probes. Then I went through my scripts and I found some minor optimizations, which include reducing the frequency of RTPC updates from hundreds per second to like dozens. Lastly, I converted the audio files in Wwise to lower the size of each file massively. I did also add jump and land audio for the core surface types. And I just couldn't resist designing some foliage details in this corner of the map only, just to give you an idea of what I had in mind from the beginning. With all that said and done, now it's time for the in-game demo. And with that, the ambient soundscape's done, so I'm moving on to writing and implementing original music into this game. Please stay tuned for that process coming in the next episode. For now, I leave you with some words of inspiration and a sincere thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you in the next one.